So let's talk about a totally different way to think about success. Forget the to-do list for a second, forget the quarterly goals. We're going to start somewhere else entirely. We're going to start with your nervous system. We're going to explore how mastering your inner state, your own calm, is actually the secret to building an outer strategy that wins the entire decade, not just the day. Let's dive in.
This quote from Farnham Street really just nails it, doesn't it? I mean, so much of our world is built around looking good right now. But real, lasting success, the kind that grows and compounds over time, that almost always requires us to make moves that, honestly, might look a little weird or even counterintuitive in the moment. It means we have to start playing a completely different game.
And that's really our first big idea here. Why do so many of us feel completely burnt out? It's because we're playing the wrong game. We're stuck in this frantic loop of short-term thinking, always chasing the next small win that feels great today but builds absolutely nothing for tomorrow.
Okay, so check this out. Author Simon Sinek has this brilliant way of framing it. He says there are two kinds of games. You've got finite games, like a game of chess. There are clear rules, you know who you're playing against, and there's a definite end. Someone wins, someone loses. But then you have infinite games, like your career or building a business. The rules can change, new players can show up at any time, and there's no finish line. The whole point isn't to win, it's to stay in the game and keep playing. The trouble starts when we bring that finite, I gotta win now mindset into an infinite game. And that right there is the trap. When you're constantly trying to win every single day, you're living in a state of nonstop stress. You're just reacting all the time. Sure, you might hit your sales target this month, but guess what? You're fried, your team is exhausted, and you haven't actually built anything that will last. You've won a tiny battle, but you're losing the war.
So here's the real question, the one that changes everything. How on earth are you supposed to think 10 years down the road when your brain is screaming about a deadline that's due tomorrow? It's impossible, right? Before we can even begin to change our strategy, we have to change our internal state. You have to win the inner game first. Which leads us right here, mastering your inner state. And look, we're not talking about just thinking positive or some fluffy affirmations. We're talking about real, physical tools that let you grab the controls of your own nervous system. This is all about becoming a calmer, more effective operator of your own body, so you can start setting the traps that guarantee your own success.
You know, as neuroscientist Andrew Huberman puts it, stress itself isn't the bad guy. It's just your body's universal go button. It's a system designed to stir you up, to get you agitated and ready for action. The problem isn't the signal. The problem is when that signal gets stuck in the on position and you can't turn it off.
But here's the good news. Your body has a built-in brake. It's called the parasympathetic nervous system, and its whole job is to calm you down. So the secret to managing stress isn't trying to avoid it. That's impossible. The secret is getting really, really good at hitting that brake pedal whenever you want.
And believe it or not, this is the most powerful way to slam on that brake. It's called the physiological sigh. It's a breathing pattern our bodies do automatically when we're trying to calm down, like after crying. But you can do it on purpose. You take a big inhale through your nose. Then, right at the top, you sneak in a second little inhale. That second puff of air pops open the tiny little air sacs deep in your lungs. And then you exhale, slowly, for as long as you can. That long exhale tells your brain, hey, we're safe. Slow everything down.
And the best part? This is so fast. You don't need to go meditate for 20 minutes. Just doing that physiological sigh 1 to 3 times can dramatically lower your level of stress in real time. We're talking seconds. It gives you control back right when you need it most. Okay, so once you've got that tool in your back pocket, once you can operate from a place of calm, now you've earned the right to think about the long term. This is where we shift from just reacting to everything to actually designing our future. You can start laying the traps that will make your success almost inevitable.
And the number one rule of strategy is this: look forward and reason backward. So instead of just thinking, okay, what's my next move, you start at the end. You picture exactly where you want to be in 10 years, and then you work your way backward from there to figure out the single most important thing you need to do today to make that future happen.
This little diagram is a perfect example of what that looks like. Think about it. Your night self wants to wake up early, but night self knows that morning self is lazy and will just hit snooze. So what does night self do? It reasons backward and makes one strategic move. It sets an alarm and puts it across the room. That one simple action completely changes the game for morning self. You're literally laying a trap for your future self to succeed.
So how do we use this kind of thinking in our careers?
Well, the investor Naval Ravikant has some incredible principles for this. He says first, play long-term games with long-term people, because all the big rewards in life, in money, in relationships, come from compound interest over time. And how do you do that? You escape competition by just being yourself. No one else on the planet can compete with you at being you. So double down on what you're naturally good at. Value your time like it's gold, and just commit to playing the long game.
Now, this does bring up a pretty important question. When you start thinking several moves ahead, trying to shape the future, where do you draw the line between being a brilliant strategist and just being a manipulator?
You see books like The 48 Laws of Power, and they get a lot of heat for basically teaching a win-at-all-costs, amoral approach. But here's the thing. That's a finite game mindset. In an infinite game, where you're playing for keeps with the same people over and over, your reputation and the trust you build are everything. A manipulative strategy might win you one hand, but it guarantees you'll get kicked out of the game eventually.
All right, let's put it all together. How do we combine this inner calm with this outer strategy? How do we synthesize these two sides of the coin to build a life of real, lasting success?
It really all comes down to this one simple truth. Your ability to self-regulate is the foundation for all good strategy. Period. A calm, controlled inner state isn't some nice-to-have luxury, it's the absolute requirement for the kind of clear, expansive thinking you need to play the long game. Trying to be a strategist while you're in a panic is like trying to navigate a ship through a hurricane without a map or a compass. It's just not going to work.
And this is what it looks like when you put it all into practice. Simon Sinek's principles for an infinite mindset show us the way. It's about having a mission that's bigger than just making money. It's about building teams where people feel safe enough to take risks. It's about looking at your rivals not as enemies to be crushed, but as teachers who make you better. And it's about being willing to completely change your approach if it helps you advance your cause. You can't do any of this from a place of fear or panic.
So I'll just leave you with this one last question to think about. When you look at your job, your ambitions, your life, are you playing to win or are you playing to last? Because the answer to that question might just change everything.